What if the taste of a nation could tell the story of its people? From a bird that became a symbol of unity to a slice that powers a sleepless city. America's foods aren't just recipes, they're roadmaps of history, migration, and identity. Tonight, we are unwrapping the verified stories behind Thanksgiving's roasted turkey and the New York slice, how they rose to icon status and what they still reveal about who we are. If you love discovering the true stories behind America's most beloved traditions, subscribe and join us for the next chapter of Uncharted America. Now, let's step into the kitchen and into history.
Unwrapping America's food traditions. Have you ever paused to consider why a roasted turkey takes center stage at Thanksgiving? Or what gives a New York pizza slice its signature fold? These aren't just meals. They're cultural touchstones that tell stories of history, innovation, and regional pride. Across the United States, dishes like these evoke memories and bring people together. Yet, many of us only scratch the surface of their origins and significance. Today, we're diving deep into the verified facts that make American Thanksgiving feasts and New York pizza so iconic, promising to reveal the delicious details that will enrich your understanding and perhaps even inspire your next meal. The heavy oven door groans open, releasing a wave of heat and the unmistakable, savory aroma that defines the fourth Thursday of November. It's a scent that permeates the walls of American homes, a blend of roasting poultry, melting butter, and herbs that signals the official, unspoken start of the holiday season. In the center of the oven, glistening under the low light, is the titan of the feast, the undisputed star, roasted turkey. On Thanksgiving, for millions, it's simply incomplete without a roasted turkey. This single bird has become so synonymous with the holiday that the day itself is often affectionately called Turkey Day. The sheer scale of its consumption is staggering. Each year, Americans prepare and eat an estimated 46 million turkeys for this one meal. To put that figure into perspective, the combined weight of these birds is roughly equivalent to the weight of 2 Empire State Buildings. It is a culinary tradition of immense proportions, a shared experience that connects households from Maine to California. But was it always this way? The popular image of the first Thanksgiving in 1621, with Pilgrims and Wampanoag people sharing a large roasted turkey, is more a product of 19th century romanticism than historical fact. Primary accounts from the time, like the letter from colonist Edward Winslow, mention that the governor sent 4 men on a fowling mission. They returned with enough birds to feed the company for almost a week. This fowl could have included wild turkeys, which were native and plentiful, but it just as likely consisted of ducks, geese, and even swans. There is no definitive record confirming that a turkey was the centerpiece. So how did this one particular bird ascend to its throne? The answer lies in a combination of practicality, symbolism, and savvy marketing by a determined magazine editor. In the early years of the United States, the turkey was a logical choice for a celebratory feast. Unlike chickens, which were valued for their eggs, or cows, which were needed for milk and labor, turkeys were raised primarily for their meat. They were also large enough to feed a crowd, a crucial feature for the large multi-generational families of the era. A single bird weighing 15 to 20 pounds could satisfy dozens of guests. The turkey also had a powerful, if informal, endorsement from one of the nation's founding fathers. In a 1784 letter to his daughter, Benjamin Franklin famously praised the turkey as a much more respectable bird than the bald eagle. He called the turkey a true original native of America and a bird of courage. While he never officially proposed that as a national bird, his sentiment captured a growing sense of American identity, linking the native turkey to the spirit of the new nation. The bird's status was cemented in the mid-19th century, largely through the efforts of Sarah Josepha Hale, a writer and the influential editor of Godey's Lady Book. For decades, she campaigned to make Thanksgiving a national holiday, believing it could help unify a country fractured by growing tensions.
In her editorials and novels, she painted a vivid picture of the ideal Thanksgiving. And at the heart of her vision was a large roasted turkey. When President Abraham Lincoln finally declared Thanksgiving a national holiday in 1863, Hale's idealized version of the feast, turkey and all, was readily adopted by the American public. It became the standard, a tradition passed down through generations, each family adding its own small rituals to the preparation. The secret brine recipe, the specific blend of herbs rubbed under the skin, and the time-honored argument over who gets to carve.
Stuffing versus dressing, a regional delight. As the turkey roasts, another aroma begins to join the course, the warm herbaceous scent of bread, onions, celery, and sage. This is the set of its inseparable partner, a dish so essential that its name sparks friendly debates across dinner tables nationwide. Is it stuffing or is it dressing? Technically, the distinction is simple. Stuffing is cooked inside the cavity of the turkey, where it absorbs the bird's flavorful juices as it roasts. Dressing is cooked separately in a casserole dish. But in practice, the name you use likely has more to do with where you grew up than how you cook it. The term stuffing is more common in the Northeast and Midwest, while Southerners almost exclusively call it dressing, regardless of where it's cooked. The concept of filling the cavity of an animal before cooking is an ancient one, born of a desire to prevent waste and add flavor and moisture. The practice dates back to at least the Roman Empire, where the cookbook Apicius, compiled in the late 4th or 5th century, contains recipes for stuffed chicken, rabbit, and even dormice. The Romans called this technique farcire, the Latin verb meaning to stuff, which is the root of the culinary term farce. This culinary tradition was carried through Europe and eventually arrived in the Americas with the colonists. What makes this dish so uniquely American, however, is its incredible diversity. It is a culinary map of the United States, with each region adapting the recipe to reflect its local agriculture and cultural heritage. Imagine two old college friends catching up over the phone the week before Thanksgiving. One, living in Boston, describes her family's tradition, a classic New England stuffing made from stale white bread, celery, onions, sage, and, most importantly, oysters. The briny and savory flavor of the oysters, a nod to the coastal region's once abundant and inexpensive shellfish, cuts through the richness of the turkey. Her friend, calling from her kitchen in rural Mississippi, scoffs good-naturedly. For her, it isn't Thanksgiving without cornbread dressing. Her recipe starts not with white bread, but with a skillet of crumbly, savory cornbread baked a day or two earlier. To this, she adds sautéed onions and celery, crumpled breakfast sausage, and a rich chicken or turkey stock, sometimes with a hard-boiled egg chopped in for good measure. It's a dish deeply rooted in the agricultural history of the South, where corn was king. The final product is moist, dense, and profoundly comforting. Travel across the country and the variations continue. In parts of the upper Midwest, you might find wild rice dressing, a tribute to the native grain harvested for centuries by the region's indigenous peoples. In Pennsylvania, some families add mashed potatoes to their stuffing, creating a hearty, dense dish known as filling. Head to the Southwest and you might find cornbread dressing, spiced with chorizo and chilies. In recent decades, the lines have blurred slightly. Food safety concerns have led many, including the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, to recommend cooking the mixture outside the bird. To be considered safe, stuffing inside a turkey must reach an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit, which often means the turkey itself becomes overcooked and dry. As a result, many families who once swore by stuffing now bake it as a dressing to achieve a perfectly cooked bird and a safely heated side dish. Yet the old names and the regional pride attached to them remain. So, as the turkey rests on the carving board, its skin a perfect mahogany brown, and the steaming casserole dish of savory bread is placed on the table, what does this meal truly represent?
Is it merely a collection of recipes, or is it a reflection of a family's journey, a map of where they came from, and a tradition they choose to carry forward? The argument over stuffing versus dressing is more than just semantics. It's a quiet testament to the way language evolves and adapts to culture. The word stuffing itself feels direct, almost primal, describing the physical act of filling the bird. Dressing, on the other hand, feels a touch more refined, a term that suggests something served alongside, an adornment to the main event. This linguistic split is a fascinating piece of Americana. Data from search engine trends and regional cookbook analyses consistently shows a clear dividing line, often mirroring the historical Mason-Dixon line, with the South firmly in the dressing camp. It's a subtle echo of cultural divergence, played out not in politics, but in the kitchen.
Beyond the name, the choice of ingredients tells a story of immigration and assimilation. The classic sage and onion flavor profile is a direct descendant of British culinary traditions. Sage was a cornerstone of English cooking for centuries, believed to aid in the digestion of rich, fatty meats. When English settlers arrived in America, they brought their flavor preferences with them, applying them to the new ingredients they found. The celery and onions, the foundational mirepoix of the dish, are French in origin, a technique that became standard in American kitchens over time. The brat itself, whether stale white bread, rustic sourdough, or hearty cornbread, speaks to the agricultural realities of a region. It was a dish born of thrift, a way to turn something old and otherwise unusable, stale bread, into something delicious and celebratory. This principle of resourceful cooking is a thread that runs through much of American culinary history. As the turkey and dressing claim their spots on the groaning sideboard, a parade of other dishes follows, each with its own history. A large bowl of creamy whipped potatoes is placed next to a gravy bout, its contents a deep, rich brown. This duo, mashed potatoes and gravy, seems so fundamental, so inseparable from the turkey, that it's hard to imagine the meal without it. Yet, its journey to the Thanksgiving table is a story of agricultural science and culinary evolution. Potatoes are not native to North America. Their story begins high in the Andes Mountains of South America, where they were first domesticated thousands of years ago. They were brought to Europe by Spanish explorers in the 16th century, but their adoption was slow. For a long time, many Europeans viewed the potato with suspicion. It was a member of the nightshade family, like the poisonous belladonna, and it wasn't mentioned in the Bible. It was considered food for livestock or for the desperate poor. It took the tireless promotion of figures like Antoine Augustin Parmentier in France, who saw the potato's potential to fight famine, to make it a respectable staple. The potato arrived in North America with European immigrants, but it wasn't until the 19th century that it became a widespread crop. The development of hardier varieties like the russet Burbank, developed in the 1870s by American horticulturist Luther Burbank, made the potato a reliable and profitable crop across the country. The russet, with its high starch content and fluffy texture when cooked, proved to be the perfect candidate for mashing. The act of mashing boiled potatoes with butter and milk or cream was a European technique, but it was in America that it was perfected and democratized. It became the ultimate comfort food, a simple, inexpensive, and satisfying way to round out a meal. And what are mashed potatoes without gravy? The gravy served at Thanksgiving is a masterclass in using every last bit of flavor. It begins in the roasting pan with the caramelized drippings, the fond, left behind by the turkey. This is pure, concentrated flavor. Deglazing the pan with stock or wine, whisking in a thickener like flour or cornstarch, and seasoning it to perfection transforms these humble remnants into a luscious sauce. It's a process that connects the side dish directly to the main course, tying the entire plate together. Every family has their own gravy secrets: a splash of sherry, a spoonful of Worcestershire sauce, a pinch of a secret herb blend. The quality of the gravy can make or break the meal, and the person in charge of it often bears a heavy, albeit delicious, responsibility. Nearby, a small dish holds a jewel-toned condiment, its color a vibrant crimson against the muted tones of the rest of the meal. Cranberry sauce is one of the few elements of the modern Thanksgiving feast that has a direct, verifiable link to the early colonial period. Cranberries are one of North America's native fruits, growing wild in the bogs of the Northeast. Indigenous peoples, including the Wampanoag, had been harvesting them for centuries. They called them sasumunesh and used them not just for food, but also as a dye and a medicine. They would often mix crushed cranberries with dried deer meat and fat to create pemmican, a nutrient-dense, long-lasting food that was perfect for traveling. The colonists learned about the berry from their Native American neighbors. They called it the craneberry because the flower of the plant, with its delicate drooping petals, resembled the head and neck of a crane. They quickly adopted it, recognizing its value. The berry's high acidity and pectin content meant that when cooked with sugar or maple syrup, it would naturally thicken into a jam or sauce. This made it an excellent preservative. A recipe for a cranberry tart appears in the first American cookbook, Amelia Simmons' American Cookery, published in 1796. The commercialization of the cranberry began in the early 19th century, when a veteran of the Revolutionary War named Henry Howe, living on Cape Cod, discovered that wild cranberries grew better when sand was periodically layered over the bogs. This cultivation technique is still used today. But the person who truly put cranberry sauce on every Thanksgiving table was a man named Marcus L. Uran, a lawyer who decided to become a cranberry farmer. He was a marketing genius. In 1912, he started a cooperative of cranberry growers that would eventually become Ocean Spray. He understood that to sell more cranberries, he needed to make them a year-round product, not just a seasonal treat. He began canning them, creating the jellied, tan-shaped log that is still, for many, the only acceptable form of cranberry sauce. The ridges from the can are, for these devotees, a non-negotiable part of the presentation. The debate between jellied and whole berry sauce is another of Thanksgiving's gentle rivalries. Proponents of the jellied log love its smooth texture and nostalgic simplicity. It slices cleanly, holding its shape on the plate. Advocates for whole berry sauce prefer its more complex, rustic texture and the burst of tartness from the individual berries. Whichever side one chooses, the sauce serves a crucial culinary purpose. Its bright, acidic flavor cuts through the richness of the turkey, gravy, and stuffing, cleansing the palate and preparing it for the next bite. It is the meal's exclamation point. The evolution of the Thanksgiving menu didn't stop with the classics. As the 20th century progressed, new dishes began to appear, reflecting changes in American society. Perhaps no dish better represents this shift than the green bean casserole. Its story begins not in a family kitchen, but in a corporate test kitchen in Camden, New Jersey.
In 1955, a woman named Dorcas Riley was working in the home economics department at the Campbell Soup Company. Her job was to create simple, reliable recipes using Campbell's products that could be printed on can labels or in magazine advertisements. The Associated Press had asked for a recipe for a vegetable side dish that was easy to make with common pantry ingredients. Riley and her team began experimenting. They wanted something that used two things most American households had on hand: green beans, usually canned, and Campbell's cream of mushroom soup, a hugely popular product introduced in 1934. After several iterations, they landed on a winning combination: green beans, cream of mushroom soup, and a topping of crispy fried onions. It was simple, it was convenient, and it was delicious in a way that resonated with the mid-century palate. Campbell's named it the Green Bean Bake and began promoting it heavily. It was an instant success. The recipe offered a consistent, foolproof way to create a tasty side dish with minimal effort, a perfect solution for busy home cooks preparing a large holiday meal. Today, Campbell's estimates that their cream of mushroom soup is used in some 20 million Thanksgiving green bean casseroles each year.
Dorcas Riley's original recipe card is now in the collection of the National Inventors Hall of Fame, a testament to the enduring power of her simple, brilliant creation. The casserole represents a specific moment in American culinary history, a time when convenience was king and canned goods were seen as modern and sophisticated. It speaks to the post-war boom, the rise of suburban living, and the power of corporate marketing to shape national tastes. For some, it's a dated relic, a symbol of an overly processed food culture. But for millions of others, its creamy, savory, crunchy combination is the taste of home, a comforting and indispensable part of the holiday. And another sweet and savory staple, particularly beloved in the South, is the sweet potato casserole. Like the cranberry, the sweet potato has deep roots in the Americas, though its journey is more complex. Native to Central and South America, the sweet potato was cultivated for thousands of years before Columbus arrived. It spread throughout the Caribbean and was one of the first American foods Columbus took back to Spain. From there, it traveled across Europe, Africa, and Asia. In the United States, sweet potatoes became a particularly important crop in the South, where the climate was ideal for their cultivation. They were a dietary staple, especially for enslaved African Americans who adapted them into countless dishes, drawing on culinary traditions from West Africa. The practice of pairing sweet potatoes with warming spices like cinnamon and nutmeg has its roots in these traditions. The now famous topping of melted marshmallows is a much more recent and distinctly American invention. It was the result of a clever marketing campaign at the turn of the 20th century. In 1917, the marketers for a company called Angelus Marshmallows, which was looking for ways to sell their new, mass-produced cubicle marshmallows, hired Janet Mackenzie Hill, the founder of the Boston Cooking School magazine, to develop a booklet of recipes. One of those recipes was for a mashed sweet potato casserole, topped with a layer of their marshmallows, which were then broiled until puffy and golden. The recipe was a hit. It combined the comforting, earthy sweetness of the potatoes with the sugary, confectionery novelty of the marshmallows. The combination was irresistible, and it quickly became a holiday tradition, a dish that perfectly straddles the line between side dish and dessert. And speaking of dessert, no Thanksgiving meal is truly complete without a slice of pie. While apple and pecan pies are popular contenders, the undisputed king of the Thanksgiving dessert table is pumpkin pie. Like the turkey and cranberries, the pumpkin is a native of America. Pumpkins and other winter squashes were a cornerstone of the Three Sisters agricultural system practiced by many Native American tribes, grown alongside corn and beans in a symbiotic relationship. The early English colonists were initially unfamiliar with the pumpkin, but quickly learned of its versatility from their Native American neighbors. They found that it grew easily and stored well, making it a valuable food source for the long, harsh winters. They didn't make pies in the way we do today, with a flaky pastry crust. Instead, their early versions of pumpkin pie were more like a custard, cooked inside a hollowed-out pumpkin. They would cop the top off the pumpkin, scoop out the seeds, and fill the cavity with a mixture of milk, honey, or maple syrup, and spices. Then, they would put the top back on and bury the entire pumpkin in the hot ashes of a fire to bake slowly. The transition to a pie with a crust happened over time, as European baking techniques were adapted to American ingredients. The first published recipe for something resembling a modern pumpkin pie appeared in Amelia Simmons' American Cookery. She called it pumpkin pudding and instructed the cook to bake it in a crust. By the 19th century, thanks in large part to the same advocacy from Sarah Josepha Hale that elevated the turkey, pumpkin pie became the quintessential Thanksgiving dessert. She wrote glowingly about it, and its inclusion in her vision of the perfect Thanksgiving helped solidify its place in the national tradition. For her, the pumpkin, a humble fruit of the American soil, represented the bounty and simplicity of the nation.
Even the spices in the pie, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, and cloves, tell a global story. These were the valuable commodities that drove the age of exploration. Spices that once traveled thousands of miles along the Silk Road or on ships sailing treacherous seas. Their presence in an all-American dessert is a reminder that American cuisine has always been a product of global exchange. Today, most home bakers don't buy these spices individually. They simply reach for a container of pumpkin pie spice, a pre-blended mix which was first commercialized by McCormick & Company in the 1930s. Another example of 20th century convenience shaping a centuries-old tradition.
The Thanksgiving meal, in all its regional and historical complexity, is a uniquely American ritual. But what happens when the holiday is over, the leftovers are gone, and life returns to its normal rhythm? Americans turn to other, more everyday culinary icons, and in the bustling, vertical landscape of New York City, few things are more iconic than a slice of pizza. The story of New York pizza is, at its heart, an immigrant story. It begins not in Manhattan, but in Naples, Italy. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Naples was a crowded, bustling port city. Much of its population consisted of the working poor, or lazzaroni. They needed food that was cheap, filling, and could be eaten quickly, often on the go. Street vendors began selling a simple flatbread topped with ingredients like tomatoes, cheese, garlic, and anchovies. This was the birth of pizza. For a long time, it was considered a peasant food, looked down upon by the upper classes. Everything changed in 1889. According to a popular and enduring legend, King Umberto I and Queen Margherita of Italy were visiting Naples. The Queen, tired of the elaborate French cuisine served by the royal court, asked to try some of the local pizza. A pizzaiolo named Raffaele Esposito was summoned. He created 3 pizzas for her. The first had lard, caciocavallo cheese, and basil. The second had anchovies. The third, however, was designed to be patriotic. It was topped with tomatoes, red, mozzarella cheese, white, and fresh basil, green, the colors of the newly unified Italian flag. The Queen was said to have loved this one the most, and it was named Pizza Margherita in her honor. This royal endorsement elevated pizza's status, transforming it from a street food into a national dish. As millions of Italians, particularly from the impoverished South, immigrated to the United States in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they brought their culinary traditions with them. They settled in crowded enclaves in cities like New York, Boston, and New Haven. In these little Italies, they opened bakeries and restaurants, recreating the tastes of home. The first pizzeria in the United States was opened in 1905 by an immigrant named Gennaro Lombardi. His small grocery store on Spring Street in Manhattan's Little Italy began selling tomato pies baked in a coal-fired oven, wrapped in paper and tied with a string. They were an instant hit for the local Italian-American factory workers. Lombardi's was not just the first pizzeria in America. It was the training ground for many of the pizzaiolos who would go on to open their own legendary pizzerias like Totano's in Coney Island and John's of Bleecker Street. These early pizzerias all used coal-fired brick ovens, which could reach incredibly high temperatures, 800 to 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This intense heat cooked the pizzas in a matter of minutes, producing a crust that was charred, blistered, and impossibly crisp, with a distinctive smoky flavor. For decades, pizza remained a food largely confined to these Italian-American neighborhoods. The rest of America was mostly unaware of it. That began to change after World War II. American soldiers returning from the Italian campaign had developed a taste for pizza. They came home craving it, creating a new nationwide demand. At the same time, the post-war economic boom and the rise of car culture created a new landscape of suburban diners and drive-ins. Pizza,
with its communal nature and easy adaptability, was perfectly suited for this new era. It was during this post-war period that the classic New York-style pizza we know today truly came into its own. As pizza moved out of the old-school coal oven pizzerias and into neighborhood slice shops, the ovens changed. The massive, labor-intensive coal ovens were replaced by more practical, compact, gas-fired deck ovens. These ovens couldn't reach the same scorching temperatures as coal ovens, but they provided a consistent, even heat that was perfect for a different style of crust. The gas oven produced a crust that was still crisp on the bottom, but also softer and more pliable, giving rise to the signature New York fold. This was a crucial innovation. The ability to fold a large slice in half made it manageable, a self-contained, one-handed meal perfect for a city in constant motion. You could eat it on the sidewalk, on the subway platform, or walking between appointments. It was the ultimate urban food.
The character of the pizza is defined by a few simple, high-quality components. The foundation is the dough. It's made from high-gluten flour, which contains more protein than all-purpose flour. This extra protein develops into strong gluten strands during kneading, giving the dough its characteristic strength and elasticity. This is what allows it to be stretched so thin without tearing, and what gives the final crust its satisfying chew. Then there is the water. The idea that New York City's tap water is the secret ingredient in its pizza and bagels is a long-standing and fiercely defended piece of local lore. While it might sound like a myth, there is some scientific basis to it. New York's water, which comes from protected reservoirs in the Catskill Mountains, is very soft, meaning it has a low concentration of minerals like calcium and magnesium, and it also has a specific pH balance. These minerals can affect the way gluten behaves. Hard water can strengthen the gluten network, making the dough tougher, while very soft water can make it slack. New York's water seems to hit a sweet spot, allowing the dough to be strong yet pliable. Pizzerias in other parts of the country have been known to install complex water filtration systems to try to replicate the mineral content of New York water. Frank Masi, the owner of a famous pizzeria in Florida, spent thousands of dollars on a system to recreate the water he grew up with in Brooklyn, convinced it was the only way to make his pizza taste right. The sauce is typically minimalist. Unlike the thick, heavily herbed sauces found on many other styles of pizza, New York pizza sauce is usually a simple, uncooked puree of high-quality canned tomatoes, often San Marzanos, seasoned with just a little salt, pepper, and maybe a pinch of oregano or a crushed garlic clove. The goal is to let the bright, fresh flavor of the tomatoes shine through.
The cheese is almost always low-moisture, whole-milk mozzarella. This is key. Fresh mozzarella, while delicious, has a very high water content. When baked, it releases a lot of moisture, which can make the pizza soggy. Low-moisture mozzarella, which is aged longer, has a saltier, tangier flavor and, most importantly, melts beautifully without releasing excess water. It creates that iconic cheese pull and develops little pools of flavorful grease that are a hallmark of a great slice. The final element is the oven. The gas-fired deck oven has a stone or ceramic deck on which the pizza is baked directly. The pizzaiolo uses a long wooden peel to slide the pizza into the oven, which is typically heated to around 500 to 600 degrees Fahrenheit. This direct contact with the hot deck is what creates the crisp, browned bottom crust, while the ambient heat of the oven cooks the toppings and melts the cheese. The whole process takes only a few minutes. The result of this specific combination of ingredients and techniques is a masterpiece of culinary engineering.
The slice is large, often 18 inches or more for a whole pie. The crust is thin in the center, allowing it to be folded, but it has a substantial, puffy, and airy edge, the cornicione, which is both crisp and chewy, perfect for dipping in any leftover sauce. It is a food of beautiful contradictions, simply yet complex, cheap yet satisfying, a meal for one and a meal for a crowd. It is woven into the fabric of New York life, the subject of endless debate about which slice shop is the best, and a symbol of this city's resilience, creativity, and immigrant soul. It is, like the Thanksgiving feast, a taste of America itself. The experience of these meals, however, extends far beyond the moment they are served. The life of the Thanksgiving feast in particular has a second act that is for many as cherished as the main event. This is the tradition of the leftovers. The day after Thanksgiving, often referred to as Black Friday, is known for its frenzied shopping, but for millions, it is a day of deliberate, glorious culinary recycling. The star of this second day is undoubtedly the Thanksgiving leftover sandwich. It is not merely a sandwich, it is an architectural feat, a stratified monument to the previous day's indulgence. The construction is a matter of personal and often passionate preference. It typically begins with 2 slices of humble white bread or a soft roll, which serve as the unassuming bookends to a story of flavor. A generous layer of cold sliced turkey comes first, followed by a slab of cold gelatinous stuffing, which provides a savory herbaceous counterpoint. Then comes the crucial element, a smear of cranberry sauce. Its tart sweetness is not just an addition, it is the catalyst that transforms the sandwich from a simple collection of leftovers into a cohesive, balanced creation. Some purists stop there. Others, however, are more ambitious. A layer of mashed potatoes might be added for creaminess, or a drizzle of cold gravy for an extra hit of umami. Some even add a layer of crispy fried onions from the green bean casserole for texture. The entire concoction is then pressed together, a cross-section revealing the festive colors and textures of the holiday, and consumed in a state of quiet, satisfied bliss. The sandwich is more than just a way to clear out the refrigerator, it is the final perfect chord of the Thanksgiving symphony. Beyond the sandwich, American ingenuity shines in the art of the leftover. Turkey carcasses are simmered for hours to create a rich, restorative stock, the base for soups and stews that will warm the coming winter days. Leftover turkey is shredded and transformed into turkey tetrazzini, a creamy, cheesy-baked pasta dish that became wildly popular in the mid-20th century, or folded into pot pies, a comforting classic with English roots. This dedication to using every last scrap is a modern echo of the same resourceful spirit that first led colonists to stuff a bird or turn stale bread into a savory dressing. It's a quiet acknowledgement that the bounty of the harvest is something to be respected and savored to the very end.
The Thanksgiving table itself, while anchored by the turkey and its traditional companions, is far from a monolith. It is a living, evolving canvas that reflects the rich tapestry of American immigration. In a home in San Antonio, Texas, the roasted turkey might be served alongside a steaming platter of tamales, their masa dough filled with spiced pork and wrapped in corn husks, a tradition that blends the American holiday with the flavors of Mexico. In a Filipino-American household in Daly City, California, the feast might include lumpia, crispy spring rolls, and pancit, a savory noodle dish, sharing space with the mashed potatoes and gravy. These additions are not replacements, they are enhancements, a way for families to honor both their heritage and their American identity on the same plate. The Thanksgiving meal becomes a dialogue between the old world and the new, a delicious representation of the country's motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. This regional and cultural diversity extends to the dessert table as well. While pumpkin pie reigns supreme, it is often joined by a host of local champions. In Pennsylvania Dutch country, a slice of shoofly pie might be served. Its intensely sweet molasses filling and crumbly topping a testament to the region's German heritage. Travel further south, and you might find a classic chess pie. Its simple custardy filling of flour, butter, sugar, and eggs baked into a golden, gooey slice of heaven. Or perhaps a pecan pie. Its filling a rich suspension of toasted pecans and a sweet corn syrup custard, a dessert that sings of southern hospitality. And for those who believe that moderation is a virtue best practiced on other days, there is the turducken. This culinary spectacle, a deboned chicken stuffed inside a deboned duck, which is then stuffed inside a deboned turkey, all layered with dressing, is a monument to American culinary excess. Its origins are traced to the Cajun country of Louisiana, a region known for its inventive and flavorful cuisine. Popularized by the legendary chef Paul Prudhomme in the 1980s, the turducken is a logistical challenge and a caloric behemoth. But for those who attempt it, it is the ultimate Thanksgiving centerpiece, a story to be told for years to come. This fierce regional pride, this passionate defense of local traditions, is just as potent when it comes to pizza. The New York slice, for all its iconic status, does not exist in a vacuum. It is defined as much by its own characteristics as it is by its contrast to its rivals. And its greatest, most storied rival lies 5 states to the west, in the city of Chicago. Chicago deep dish pizza is not just a different style of pizza, it is a fundamentally different food philosophy. Where the New York slice is about speed, portability, and elegant simplicity, deep dish is about abundance, indulgence, and sitting down with a knife and fork. It's less a flatbread and more a savory pie. The process begins with a thick, buttery crust, often made with cornmeal or semolina to give it a distinctive yellow hue and a crumbly biscuit-like texture. This dough is pressed into a high-sided, well-oiled steel pan, creating a deep bowl. Then the construction defies pizza logic. The layers are inverted. Slices of mozzarella are laid directly onto the dough, forming a solid barrier that prevents the crust from getting soggy. Next come the toppings, thick handfuls of sausage, pepperoni, mushrooms, or peppers. And only then, on the very top, comes the sauce. It's not a thin puree, but a chunky, uncooked sauce of crushed tomatoes, often seasoned with oregano and garlic. The pizza is then baked for a long time, 30 to 45 minutes, allowing the thick crust to cook through and the cheese to melt into a glorious molten pool. When a slice is finally lifted from the pan, it's a breathtaking sight. A wall of crust containing a deep reservoir of toppings with cheese stretching in long, elastic strands. The debate between these two styles is one of America's great culinary rivalries, a source of endless, passionate, and often hilarious arguments. New Yorkers see deep dish not as pizza, but as, in the words of comedian Jon Stewart, a fucking casserole. During a famous segment on The Daily Show, he railed against it, calling it an above-ground marinara swimming pool for rats. He described the experience of eating it with theatrical horror. I'm surprised you haven't thought to complete your deep dish pizza by putting a fucking mirror on the ceiling. To a New Yorker, the very essence of pizza, its quickness, its foldability, its street-level democracy, is violated by the cumbersome sit-down formality of deep dish. Chicagoans, in turn, view the New York slice as a flimsy, unsatisfying snack. They see their deep dish as a hearty, proper meal, a reflection of the city's hog butcher for the world persona. Robust, substantial, and unapologetic.
They argue that the layering protects the integrity of the ingredients, allowing each flavor to be tasted distinctly. For them, the New York slice is a greasy, foldable piece of cardboard, while their creation is a culinary masterpiece. The American pizza landscape is a vibrant ecosystem with more than just these two titans. In Detroit, you'll find a square, pan-baked pizza with a thick, chewy, almost focaccia-like crust. Its signature feature is the edge. Cheese is spread all the way to the sides of the well-oiled pan, and as it bakes, it caramelizes into a dark, crispy, crunchy lattice of pure flavor known as frico. In St. Louis, the pizza is a study in extremes. It has impossibly thin, cracker-like crust that is unleavened, giving it a distinctive snap. It's cut into squares, not wedges, a style known as the party cut. And it is topped not with mozzarella, but with Provel, a processed cheese product that is a blend of provolone, Swiss, and cheddar. Provel doesn't stretch. It melts into a gooey, creamy, almost liquid state that is beloved by locals and often reviled by outsiders. And in New Haven, Connecticut, the local style, known as a pizza, is directly descended from the original Neapolitan pies. Cooked in brutally hot coal-fired ovens, the crust is thin, oblong, and deeply charred, with a chewy texture and a smoky flavor. The most famous New Haven creation is the white clam pie, topped with fresh little neck clams, garlic, oregano, olive oil, and a grating of pecorino romano. No mozzarella, and certainly no tomato sauce.
Each of these styles tells a story about its city, its industrial history, its immigrant communities, its local tastes. But it is the New York slice shop that has become the most ubiquitous, the most archetypal American pizzeria. The experience is a ritual. You walk into a small, often narrow space, the air thick with the scent of baked dough and garlic. Behind a glassed counter sit the pies, pre-baked and ready to be sold by the slice. There's the classic plain or regular slice, just cheese, the pepperoni slice with its little cups of crispy rendered sausage, maybe a mushroom or supreme. You point to your choice. The counterman, with practiced efficiency, slides it onto a metal tray, pops it into the deck oven for a minute or two to reheat, and then, with a flick of the wrist, transfers it to a thin paper plate. At the counter, a trinity of shakers awaits: garlic powder, dried oregano, and crushed red pepper flakes. The application of these condiments is a personal art form. A light dusting of garlic powder for savory depth, a sprinkle of oregano for an herbaceous note, and a liberal shake of red pepper for slow building heat. There is no pretense, no ceremony. It is a transaction of beautiful simplicity. This simplicity has allowed for the rise of one of New York's most remarkable and debated culinary phenomena, the dollar slice. In a city known for its exorbitant cost of living, the ability to buy a hot, cheesy slice of pizza for a single $1 feels like an economic miracle. These shops, which proliferated after the 2008 financial crisis, operate on a model of extreme volume. They use cheaper ingredients, less cheese, and a slightly sweeter sauce, but they make up for it by selling thousands of slices a day. For students, artists, and anyone on a tight budget, the dollar slice is more than just cheap food. It's lifeline. It has become a de facto measure of the city's economic health, a barometer of affordability. The pizzeria, in its New York form, is one of the city's great democratic spaces. At the counter of a slice shop in Midtown Manhattan, you will see construction workers in dusty boots standing next to Wall Street traders in bespoke suits, both performing the same ritual fold, both chasing the same simple, satisfying meal. It is a place of shared experience in a city of 8 million individual stories. And while pepperoni remains the undisputed king of toppings in America, the pizzeria has also been the stage for culinary experimentation and controversy. The most divisive of these is undoubtedly the Hawaiian pizza. Topped with ham and pineapple, its sweet and savory combination inspires either passionate devotion or visceral disgust.
Interestingly, this American classic was not invented in Hawaii or the United States, but in Chatham, Ontario in 1962 by a Greek-Canadian restaurateur named Sam Panopoulos, who was inspired by the sweet and sour flavors of Chinese cuisine. Its journey to becoming a staple on pizzeria menus across the U.S. is another example of the complex global currents that shape what Americans eat, transforming a Canadian-Greek-Chinese experiment into a slice of Americana. The day's rituals often begin long before the oven is preheated, unfolding not in the kitchen, but in the living room. For millions of American families, the ambient noise of Thanksgiving morning is the sound of commentators analyzing a football game. The link between the holiday and the sport is deeply entrenched. While college teams had played on Thanksgiving since the 1870s, the professional tradition was cemented in 1934 when George A. Richards, the owner of the fledgling Detroit Lions, scheduled a Thanksgiving game to boost attendance for his new team. The Gambler was a resounding success, broadcast nationally on the radio, and the Lions have played on the holiday almost every year since, creating an institution as reliable as cranberry sauce. This athletic spectacle runs concurrently with another, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which has marched through Manhattan since 1924. Watching the giant character balloons float between skyscrapers has become a rite of passage, a televised appetizer of pure whimsy before the day's culinary main course. These shared public rituals stand in fascinating contrast to the quiet evolution happening on the table itself, where some traditions fade to make room for others. Consider the slow disappearance of mincemeat pie, a holiday staple for centuries. Its medieval English origins, with a complex filling of mincemeat, suet, dried fruits, and spices like mace and cloves, created a flavor profile that was both sweet and deeply savory. As American palates shifted towards more clearly defined sweet desserts, the rich, meaty complexity of true mincemeat pie fell out of favor, becoming a historical curiosity for most. This evolution is mirrored in the pizza world, where the unsung hero is the corrugated cardboard box. Its invention was the crucial innovation that allowed pizza to escape the pizzeria and conquer the American home. Before its development in the mid-20th century, takeout pizzas were often placed on a round piece of cardboard and slid into a flimsy paper bag, arriving as a lukewarm, soggy mess. The modern pizza box, with its vents to release steam and its sturdy, stackable design, was the technological leap that enabled the multi-billion-dollar delivery industry, changing how and where the dish was consumed. This constant adaptation also gives rise to new styles, like the increasingly popular grandma pie. Originating in the home kitchens of Long Island, this rectangular pizza is baked in an olive oil-coated pan, resulting in a thin, crisp, almost fried bottom crust. The toppings are often applied in reverse, with cheese first, followed by dollops of crushed tomato sauce on top, a rustic tribute to the resourceful Italian nanas who created it. Savoring American flavors. From the hearty, family-centered traditions of Thanksgiving to the quick, foldable slices of New York pizza, these foods are more than sustenance, they're pillars of American identity. By exploring these facts, we've seen how history, innovation, and local ingredients blend to create enduring icons. Whether you're gathering for a holiday or grabbing a slice on the go, remember the stories behind each bite. Thanks for joining this culinary journey, and may it add flavor to your appreciation of American culture.